Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Bite Size Opinions. I'm Vladdy, I'm your host for today. And with me, we have George. Please, George, if you can say a couple of words about yourself.
Sure. Um, I was the senior software engineer on the Android team at JW Player and also served as their interim engineering manager. I am a startup founder and met Vladdy through an executive training program.
Are you ready to jump into the topics for today?
Absolutely.
Let's get the show rolling. The first topic is TDD, test-driven development.
Overrated.
Overrated. Okay, let us hear why.
Well, the interesting thing about TDD is that I keep seeing it thrown out as the solution to everything. But I believe that every line of code is basically tech debt until, nothing changes, right? And the fact is that code changes all the time. And we can't just say that the solution to everything is to maybe write a test and write code around it. It doesn't always work. So overrated.
Right. Okay. When you think of TDD, do you think, and actually when you think about writing the tests, do you see a difference between starting with the test and writing the test afterwards?
Yes. So let's say we start with the tests, right? Number one, we're going to have to really rely on the developer knowing what kind of test to write. Testing implementation versus testing behavior. After that, I haven't seen anyone actually gain any velocity from writing the test first. Because in the beginning, everyone's just trying to figure out how and what are we trying to build based on these requirements that we got from the ticket. And I haven't seen TDD implemented well in teams that I've worked with. Is TDD in the right frame of mind of define the problem, try and write tests around it, and try and get it to work the way the ticket describes? Yes, it has well intentions, but in the practical world, I haven't seen it work.
Yes, I understand. It's a very popular theme of I tried, didn't work, and I stopped using it, obviously. Of course, there are nuances. It matters a lot. I think that when you're trying to figure out something, when you're really, really at the beginning, you don't know even what you're going to build, I can understand. But at some point,
Absolutely.
I think velocity is not about the beginning, but the continuation, not breaking things and coming back and saying, oh, wait, I need to redo stuff and
Well,
stuff like that.
there's also the whole thing that test-driven development is meant to have the test being written first. And that is one of the key issues I have with it. But in general, testing is very important, right? And in the end of the day, you can only write tests for code that you know will change within certain parameters.
And as you mentioned, testing the implementation or testing the behavior, I usually go with behavior only. If I test the implementation, I'm just basically doubling the code.
Absolutely. And not everyone is ready and understands how to test for behavior.
Yes, it's true. I mean, tutorials don't tell you about testing, and specific tutorials regarding testing are very, let's say, awkward, and they test implementation. And of course, you start up with the left foot, and it's very hard to achieve mastery, basically, so that you can actually reap the benefits of it. I agree with that. Yeah.
And I believe software development is a part of an art skill, because most of the rules that we have are not rules, they're guidelines. And there's no clear line on how should we separate concerns between two different things. When are we expecting change to happen in one piece versus the other piece? In some places, it's very clear. And those are great places to write tests and do test-driven development. But in other places, we don't know, because our dependencies change. The technology changes altogether. And that's more tech debt. That's more tech.
Most of the times we don't know exactly. Okay. That was clear. Now let's move on to the next topic, which is Scrum.
Scrum, I think it's just right. Just right because there is a lot of people talking about Scrum. Everyone is looking for it. There's good Scrum, bad Scrum, from the perspective of like some Scrum is just waterfall in a new dress. But
yes,
even then, Scrum has offered engineers a way to schedule, plan their work, have rituals around things like reviewing what happened last sprint or grooming the next sprint. And that is invaluable to have. So because I don't want to say it's underrated, because obviously Scrum has a lot of hype behind it and a lot of people like it. So I think it's just about right.
Interesting perspective. I don't think I have any questions on this area now.
Fair.
You mentioned at the beginning about startups, so I think this would be a nice topic for yourself, working at a startup, usually focusing on software engineers, of course.
Absolutely. I think it is also just about right. There's a lot of hype of working at a startup, trying to be in early, and maybe you'll reap some nice equity plans, but that may not always happen. So there's always good stuff and bad stuff. And I think most of the industry understands it, right? Like maybe some new people may not understand, hey, working in a startup means changing what you did 2 days later. So, you may not have the same type of satisfaction as you would get in building and sustaining a product long term, because startups change so fast. But in the end of the day, I think the current conditions of what people think working at a startup is pretty accurate.
Who do you think, in your opinion, should or is a better fit to work as a startup? Somebody who has 2-3 years of experience, or somebody who already has 8, 9, 10 years of proper experience, not just, years passing by?
Absolutely. Let's see here. Well, obviously, if you know what it is to work in software development, working in a startup, it's more tension. And also at the same time, because of your experience, you can relieve that tension. But if you're new to software development and you have to learn software development and learn how to perform within a startup, I think that's very stressful.
Indeed, it's very stressful. So it comes down to what type of person you are, right? And how you deal with change and with stress.
Absolutely.
And less so with years of experience, right?
I believe so. I believe if someone was, for some reason, a genius, and they just finished school and they went to work for a startup and they knew exactly what to do in order to get that startup where they need to go, I think that's a great move for them. But in certain cases, you might want to have a few years under your belt, know what Scrum looks like, since most software companies these days are trying to use that. And a lot of these things regarding how to conduct yourself as a software engineer is not really taught in schools. You learn it through experience. Therefore, you should know.
I agree.
You should know what to do during a one-on-one with your manager. You should know how to interact with your teammates, how to do code review. So yeah.
All right. Thanks for this. Next topic is Web3. What do you think about this?
Web3 is an interesting one. I think it's overrated right now. Why? Well, there's too much hype around, and we haven't seen anything really push the needle on value. I have big hopes for Web3. I believe decentralization and peer-to-peer is the future. However, we are not there yet. So currently it is overrated. I really hope it changes in the future.
I know you have some plans regarding Web3, so best of luck with that.
Thank you.
And sort of related with hype and Web3, we are talking about AI and this concept that it will replace software engineers.
Overrated. Overrated today, at least. We all saw what happened with Devon.
Oh, yes.
insert sound effect. We also what happened with Devin. And if you work with generative AI, you know that it's not great at creative work. It knows how to answer questions many times, but even when it answers questions, I will never trust anyone to just copy and paste that. If you're not a software developer, you don't know what it's doing. I'm not saying that it's going to remove all the files on your computer or something. It's just not going to be accurate and correct. And it might miss a few things that you may have mentioned in the prompt or anything like that. So for now, it is overrated.
Okay. About removing files, that's sort of unexpected, but yeah, I mean, who knows what output it might produce, and you run it somewhere with root access. And I'm thinking now of an SQL query, where you're copy pasting and there's a delete somewhere.
Yeah.
That might prove not healthy. But what I'm thinking about is time. I mean, most people think about replacing software engineers in terms of I can copy paste or stuff like that. Usually I see software engineers adopting AI as a companion, and there are two types of experience that I have seen. The experience of actually wasting time on debugging the code that was produced by AI, or having conversation and sort of brainstorm in a way, and maybe a bit of challenge your options, and then move forward as you do normally.
Yeah, it's very easy to waste time working with generative AI. You can try and explain something, and then it's like, no, I want to do it like this, and it's like, no, that's not what I asked for at all. So in the end of the day, will the AI landscape change software development and business in general? Yes. Will management think that they can replace software engineers and, have 3 engineers do the work of 6 engineers? Maybe that's their decision, but I think it's overrated. I think they are not understanding the fact that true software development is a creative work. You need to put things together that the computer has the context around it, but it doesn't know how to use it. Let's put it like that.
In their defense, I could add that myself, I didn't consider programming as art related or creativity related. When years ago, when people asked me how I would describe myself, I would never have said anything remotely related to creativity. But as time passed, I started understanding that debugging and figuring out different ways of doing stuff is actually related to the creativity. So if somebody from this field didn't consider this, I imagine an outsider having even a harder time thinking this way.
Absolutely. Programming is thought of as something that you'll just connect a few processes and it'll magically work. But the truth is that even the architecture we decide on, how we're going to then modify the architecture later and add new modules or not, these things are deeply creative because it's up to us to make those decisions. And AI right now just doesn't have the capability of taking all that context in it and producing a creative result. We can blame the available data that's there to train it, right? Maybe in the future with better data, it can learn how to connect the dots better. It could learn how to learn faster than we can with newly released technology. But in the end of the day, today, it is overrated.
Right. Okay. What about pair programming?
Overrated.
Overrated. Confident answer.
Yes. So overrated mostly for one reason. So pair programming, I understand the whole concept of collaboration. I love collaboration. I would be a proponent of group code review more so than pair programming.
Hmm.
Pair programming often is thrown in there as it's going to somehow help someone do better. But in the end of the day, it just has it has two engineers spending their time on a single ticket. And sure, one engineer is driving and explaining everything, and the other one might be writing it or whatever. But in the end of the day, that person that was writing may not walk away with as much knowledge as they would need. In general, we learn by failing. We learn by doing things not working and trying again. So if we just adopt pair programming as, okay, I can't figure it out, and then we just pair program with the senior and we'll get it done, it's not going to work out. It really isn't. I believe that for collaboration, we should know where we're going in general. So that's why something like group code review, you'd be able to see the code as a team and say, these are the reasons we made these decisions. And the team can come together and say, okay, maybe we'll change our approach in the future, or this is a great approach, let's continue using it. And that's how a junior engineer would know how to contribute to the code base better. So pair programming, I think it's a little overrated.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what about LinkedIn?
LinkedIn, I think LinkedIn is about just right. There's a lot of buzz around LinkedIn. Everyone's trying to use it more. Everyone is taking a very marketing approach to it all. So there's hype behind it. However, it would be a sad world if LinkedIn or a similar thing didn't exist, right? So it does give you an avenue that's supposed to be more career oriented, more networking and oriented for the purpose of advancing career. And I think that's good. I do have higher expectations of what LinkedIn can do. And that's another thing where...
So would you say that the direction it seems to be heading towards, does it meet your expectations or not?
No. I think LinkedIn has the opportunity to solve the employment problem in a millisecond, but they somehow choose not to.
This is an interesting idea. Can you expand on it?
Absolutely. LinkedIn has all the data on all the employees and all the companies. If it wanted to optimize the allocation of resources, employees to companies, it could. But instead, it's taking the approach of a job board, an advertising platform, and a marketing thing. And it's failing miserably to deliver value to employees that are trying to become better, trying to make more money. And yeah, I think LinkedIn has a great responsibility, and we'll see if they'll do it, or maybe another company will come around and do it for them.
Playing the devil's advocate for a bit, I know that not all companies and not all people are on LinkedIn.
Absolutely.
There are a lot of, first of all, inactive accounts, essentially, and people who never actually made an account there.
Absolutely.
I don't know the numbers, obviously, then how many are not present, but I would actually be surprised. It might actually be a high number.
Absolutely. And I would argue that it's because LinkedIn failed to provide value. If LinkedIn provided the value that oh, wow, we're going to join LinkedIn and we're going to solve our hiring problem because they have access to a huge talent pool. And as an employee, I'm going to solve my employment problem because they has a huge access to a company pool, and they're going to match me with my skills to the right companies, to the right culture. LinkedIn could have had that power, but it's not.
Interesting ideas there. All right, thanks for that. What about the idea of having a mentor?
Underrated. underrated. Nobody talks about it enough. Having a mentor is paramount to any progress in your life. And it's sad that we don't hear it often enough so people can start doing it earlier in their careers.
Okay, have you had, or are you currently having?
I currently have a mentor. I started having a mentor about 3 years ago, and little by little, starting to unravel how important that role is.
And you started wishing that you wanted to have a mentor earlier on.
Absolutely.
What do you think it's stopping people from connecting in this way?
Absolutely. I think we all start life and then we get thrown into school. And then in school, you're taught to be an individual contributor, of course, right? You're taught
Yes.
to do the best you can by yourself. You're tested by yourself. And, that doesn't generate the idea of a mentor. Sure, teachers are there as mentors, but you see the teacher not as a mentor, but as a tester, right? Someone to challenge you and did you do well enough? And I understand that mentorship has that, but mentorship is much bigger than that. Mentorship is like a career counselor. They try and look at what do you have and try and find a place for you where you can contribute the best to society, let's say. And after you go to college, that becomes even more of a dichotomy where you as an individual do not know where to look for guidance other than do your homework, get it done as quickly and as accurately as you can, progress forward, and then hopefully maybe you'll get a job. And then after that, then you start realizing, wait a minute, nobody told me about anything. And that is why you need mentors.
Interesting perspective around the idea of schools and individual contributor mentality, which is, I'm obvious for me. Yeah, there are certain times where group activities are sort of planned, but that's a totally different dynamic. And since it's so rare, you end up thinking that most of the time in my life I need to be on my own.
Yes.
Yeah, tough.
Mentorship
Okay.
is entirely different. Mentorship is something where you have a group of people. It's good leadership. Basically, mentorship is good leadership. If it's working well.
Yeah, makes sense. And one final topic in this first round is for people who work in startups. What do you think of the role of a business analyst?
Business analyst. This is kind of like the Chandler job. Nobody knows what they do. It sounds nice. It sounds nice to have someone that's going to go and look at the data and try and extract some information about it. I would say overrated. Now, not to say that data and trying to analyze your business is not important, but the role and what we've kind of associated to it, I feel is a little overrated. Now, I am more than happy to be mistaken on this, and a business analyst is required for every startup. But I think we need to be getting to product faster. I think we need to be making sales faster, getting to revenue faster. And analysts are there to look at data after it's happened. It's kind of like analysis by paralysis a little bit. But
in the TDD topic, you mentioned not knowing what will change, right? Do you think that a business analyst can help with that?
Well, yes and no. I think a business analyst could also steer you in the wrong direction because they were measuring things a certain way. They made certain assumptions and then they presented it as fact. And that's the difficult thing with data that it doesn't always tell the real story. You need to know which data to compare and how to compare it. I'll give you a simple example. Let's imagine the business analyst was taking the number of tickets created and saying that if the number of tickets go down, customer satisfaction went up. Well, what if customer engagement and also we haven't signed new customers or customers are leaving and that's why tickets are going down? So yeah, that's the thing. A good business analyst, obviously, in a startup would do great. They'll provide the most, tactical information. But in the end of the day, we're human, so we shouldn't assume that we're all, somehow seeing beyond the fog.
I'm wondering if in this, let's say, world bubble of business analysts, are they talking about AI replacing business analysts like we're talking about replacing software engineers?
I think so. And they might even have an artwork of their own, right? So as someone that's not a business analyst, obviously I am not in a position to know exactly how and what they do. But from the outside, it does seem a little overrated.
Now we have a rapid fire round. So now we're going very quickly through some topics. They won't even be displayed. You can say underrated, overrated, just about right, or skip if you really don't have experience or don't know enough to make a call about it. Okay, are you ready?
Fair. Let's go.
Okay, the first one, Docker.
Underrated.
TypeScript.
Underrated.
Kafka.
Underrated.
Cloud certifications.
Ooh. Just about right.
Career breaks.
I think depends. What does it mean? I'd say under career break. Let's do skip.
Fair. DDD.
Ooh. Skip.
Hexagonal architecture.
I'd say skip.
Jamstack.
Skip.
Open source software.
Underrated.
VR, virtual reality.
Just about right.
Fintech, neobanks.
Just about right.
Kubernetes.
Just about right.
Mechanical keyboards.
Overrated.
Remote work.
Underrated.
Infrastructure as code.
Just about right.
Story points.
Just about right.
And DevX, or developer experience.
Underrated.
Great, thanks. This was the rapid fire round. Now, if you would like to choose one of the topics that you already answered and expand on it, I'm more than happy to listen.
Sure. Let us talk about the career breaks section.
Okay. You mentioned it depends what it means. What you had in mind are the options.
So career breaks, should we take them or not? From that perspective, I think just about right. I don't know, or let's say underrated, because for some reason career breaks look like a bad thing, even though they're kind of a good thing. So if we're looking at it through that perspective, then that's the answer, underrated. But if you were to say that, career breaks are the next best thing, then obviously that's overrated. I read the film like, what is everyone saying about it?
Okay, I got it now. Okay. All right. Well, that's about it, folks. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you got some some interesting perspectives. I know I have, and this is one of the things that I like, that I get to talk with different people and hear different opinions, not just under and overrated, obviously, but the whys are extremely important, and it opens up my mind and my view on things. So thank you for that. Thank you, George, for participating in this podcast. And for everybody who's still with us, reach out to me if you want to include new topics, either in the rapid fire or the normal section, and even propose guests. Why not? Thank you, and good night.
Thank you, Larry.